everyone, it's Stephanie here and welcome back. In today's video, we are going to be creating 3 different cards that are going to feature a bunch of stamping using the Oh Christmas Tree stamp set. I really love to create one layer stamped cards for the holidays, and I love color. If you know me, I love all things rainbow. So I always love to try and incorporate as many colors as I can into my stamping when the occasion fits. And even though this is a holiday card, because we are doing some kind of geometric modern stamping, I really think it plays well with using a lot of different colors. So this video is really just a bunch of stamping. I'm just going to be using some Christmas tree stamps here, and I'm going to move my paper around in my MISTI for each of the card designs to change up how I do the stamping. So for this first one here, I want to do a row of trees across the center of the panel, and I want to do them in rainbow order. So what I'm doing is I'm stamping the first tree there first, and then I'm going to continue on with each color, letting them slightly overlap as I go. I kind of figured out where I needed the tree to be in my MISTI stamping tool to be able to start at one end of the panel and finish in approximately the same spot on the other end of the panel. And I'm just moving my panel the same increments every time. Now you can change this up depending on how much you want your trees to overlap, if you don't want them to overlap at all. It's completely personal preference, and there's really no method to how I do this. I just kind of pick a measurement and then I just continue to use that same one as I move the panel. And because we're using the My Favorite Things dye ink to do our stamping, they layer really nicely over top of one another. So you don't really end up with a muddy look when you have the colors kind of overlap. It just kind of looks seamless and you can kind of see one color through the other, but it looks perfectly fine once you're done all of the stamping. So I'm just continuing along here, and I'm doing a double stamp if I need to, depending on how well the first stamp kind of covered that paper surface. And then I'm just kind of moving that paper as I go. And like I mentioned, I'm keeping this in the exact same increments of measurement every time I move it. And that's just going to make sure that I have it perfectly spaced and that we have the same overlap on each of the trees that we have across this front. Now once I get to this last one here, I'm just going to stamp this twice, and then we can go ahead and stamp the bottom of the tree. Now you can leave this completely like this. You don't need to add the little tree trunk. It looks really cool as is and has a really fun modern geometric look. But I did want to add the tree trunk for this one. So I just did the same thing. I put the panel back to where I started. I put the tree trunk onto the bottom of that first tree and made sure I had it centered. And now I'm just going to repeat the same process as I did for the color. And I'm just going to move this along and stamp all of the black tree trunks. So once I have that done, the last thing to do on this panel is to do the sentiment, and I decided for this one I wanted to stamp the sentiment right over top of the Christmas trees. So I have the sentiment here in my MISTI, which says Happy Christmas. This is from the Snow Globe Sentiment stamp set, which is one of my favorites. And I'm stamping this in black ink right across those colors, and I'm kind of making sure it's lined up with the lines in the trees. And I really love having that sentiment stamped right onto those Christmas trees. I just think it's a really fun, playful look. Now for the next 2 cards, I'm not going to go through all the stamping of the trees, or at least not this one. I just stamped 3 trees very similar to how I did the first card, but rather than do a whole rainbow, I just did 3 colors. I used the accent stamp on just the center tree, and then I'm stamping the sentiment directly underneath from that same sentiment stamp set, and then that is going to complete this panel. So this one was really quick and easy to stamp, but you end up with this really modern, beautiful, colorful card that you can easily mass produce for the holidays. Now moving on to the last card, I wanted to change this one up a bit. I didn't want to have a straight row of stamping since we did that on the first 2, and I also decided to do this one in a vertical formation. So I picked out one of the smaller trees from this set, and I'm just going to kind of stamp a pattern. I really didn't have the exact idea in mind when I started this. I just figured I would start stamping and see where I ended up. So for this one here, I started off with my purple tree up on the right-hand side, and I kind of did the same thing I did with the first card. I figured out where I wanted to stamp the first tree, and then I moved my panel inside my MISTI to stamp some additional trees in the same row. I then decided to move down and start from the other side of the panel, so I flipped my MISTI upside down, and now I am stamping some additional trees, but with these ones I decided not to stay in a row. I'm going to go in kind of a diagonal pattern. So I stamped that green one first, and then I shifted the panel over and also moved it up, which allowed me to stamp the yellow one kind of diagonally down from the green one. I'm going to do this one more time with my coral colored tree, and then I'm going to flip my MISTI back over and stamp the last 2 trees on the bottom right hand corner. And this type of design could have went anywhere. I could have moved the trees and had them go completely straight across in all of the rows. I could have did a bunch of rows down one side. There are so many different ways that you can create a card like this, which is why I love to do them. They're really quick and easy to make because it's just a bunch of stamping repeatedly, but by moving your panel around, you can get some really cool looks. So now I have all 3 panels stamped. I have this one here where I have the Happy Holidays and have the trees kind of stamped in a random pattern. I have the Merriest Wishes, which has 3 trees in the center with detail on one of them. And then I have the Happy Christmas one, which is the rainbow stamped Christmas trees with the tree trunks and then the sentiment stamped right on top of those trees. Now to finish them off, I went ahead and added each of these panels to a card base, so I went bright and colorful with those to match all of our stamping. I used a Limelight, Razzleberry, and Blue Raspberry card base. All of these measure A2 size, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And then to finish them off, I'm just adding some clear droplets to each of the designs. For this one here, I just added them in a random pattern, kind of tucked around the open areas of those trees. For the Merriest Wishes, I added them to the 2 outside trees since we had some detail on that center one. And then for the Happy Christmas, I added them in a pattern and just added 1 per tree. So that is our set of stamped Christmas cards. I created all of these with 1 stamp set and just a bunch of different colors of ink and my MISTI stamping tool to help me move the panels around. I hope you got some ideas from today's video to use different stamps and ink colors to create some really fun modern patterns. All of the supplies I used are linked in the video description below. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you in another video soon.